Right, welcome everybody to the November 5th EAB meeting, Environmental Advisory Board meeting. My name is Heather Sandine and I'll be serving as your technical host for tonight's meeting. But I will pass it to Hannah to call the meeting to order.
I call the meeting to order.
Second.
Great, and I'll pass it back to Heather.
Thanks. Second line. All my screens to share my slides. There we go. Great. The city has engaged with community members to co-create vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement process, please visit the website seen on your screen, bouldercolorado.gov/services/productive-atmospheres and the Boulder Revised Code section 16B. The city will enforce the rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code section 16B. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and the individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only online testimony is permitted online. Audio testimony is permitted online. No attendee shall disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of any board meeting in a manner that obstructs the business of any meeting. This also includes failing to obey any lawful order of the presiding officer to leave the physical or virtual meeting room or refrain from addressing the board. Only one person at a time may speak during open comment unless an accommodation, like an interpreter, is required. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, other epithets based on race, gender, or religion, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the meeting will not be tolerated. Because we do not have registration for open and public comment tonight, you can indicate you would like to participate by using the raise hand function. The raise hand button is in the participation box, which can be found in the menu by hovering over the top or the bottom of your screen and then clicking on the participant icon. When the box opens, you will see the raise hand button at the bottom. By clicking that button, you can indicate you would like to participate in open or public comment. If you have joined us by phone, you can press 9 to raise your hand. And before we go to open comment, my apologies, I realized that I got ahead of myself and we did not do approval of the minutes. So do you want to do that before?
But yeah, I could now I call to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Sorry, my screens keep switching on me. So right. Looks like we do have some members of the public joining us. We have, I see Lynn Siegel has her hand up. Lynn, you'll have 3 minutes to speak and I will unmute you.
Yeah, for starters, I was just trying to find out on your agenda, why don't you have public comment on the agenda? I oftentimes follow about 10 city boards. It's really hard to do. I'm sorry. I'm just doing the best I can, but many of them conflict, and this is an example of one. Luckily, Landmarks Board tonight had something removed from the agenda. Unfortunately, a hotel by Tebow at 11th and Spruce that I had been following, and I am kind of anxious now about what happened with that because he wanted to put in a whole new accessory building there, and I've been watching it for some time, but they're not entertaining it, so I jumped to you for the first time in probably 10 years or 5 years that I've testified at EAB because Landmarks Board is a priority for me. I don't like to see these properties going into the landfill, as I've seen many. I mean, the case in point and this was Landmarks, but it relates directly to you, was an 8,000 square foot, $6.1 million demolition at 770 Circle Place, which is at Baseline and Flagstaff, basically, very close to that, on the Wooey, made of flagstone by a Hobie Wagner or somebody, a famous architect. And Landmarks Board actually allowed it to be demoed in LDRC, which is unrecorded. It's unprecedented what goes on with Landmarks Board and without your eyes on it because, you know, you're the EAB. Well, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can. And the fact that that building, and it hasn't been demoed yet because some people that bought it from England as a second home to build a new place there and demo it, sold it. And now it's now been a couple of years and it has to go before demolition again. And God forbid that it will go before demolition again and pass. And certainly not in LDRC without it even being recorded. I mean, this happens. This kind of stuff does happen. You wouldn't believe this stuff. And you guys don't even have it ever involved with you. This is called carbon footprint destruction in a landfill for nothing. 1015 Juniper. Oh, because it's on the confluence zone and they can't expand it the way they wanted. It was like a $5 million giveaway. This is what's happening under your eyes. Do you see why I have to go there and not come to EAB? You know, you're talking about water tonight, and that's really important to me. I think we need a carbon footprint per person in Boulder that includes water, police, fire, all services, rec centers, libraries, all of that stuff. And then we need to control our population based on the carbon footprint of each human that goes into each planning board.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm glad you could make it tonight, but unfortunately the 3 minutes is up.
I do not see anybody else's hand up. We'll give just a second to see if anyone else wants to speak. Seeing no hands, we can move on to the next agenda item.
Water supply overview.
Okay. Thanks, Board. I'll do a quick tee up here. And one of the things I just wanted to acknowledge, and one of the things that Lynn was talking about is demolition. And as you know, one of the things the board has talked about is having better visibility into the deconstruction. Obviously, we do have a deconstruction ordinance that requires 75% of waste across at least 3 sectors be reused or recycled, and there are some challenges with that, and we're going to be talking about how to strengthen that ordinance to make sure that we really recognize the importance of the deconstructibility of our buildings. And so just want to appreciate Lynn for being here and always watching this issue with respect to embodied carbon in our built environment. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with the board tonight and to have our water resources manager, Ken Hutton, here with us to give a really great presentation. I've seen this before. This was a presentation and a topic that was before City Council, I think at the beginning of August.
Yeah.
Around then, okay. And we weren't able to have this come to the board in advance of that, which is okay. It was an informational item for council, and so that suggested that this was timely to bring it before you all to just get an update on the city's water supply, how we assess that supply. And one of the things that I've just been really impressed with him and her team is really looking at some of the forecasts around the climate forecasts, and then looking at those scenarios and understanding the stressors and how does it change water supply in the out years. And so I don't need to say any more about that. That's exactly what Kim is going to be talking about. But again, we have her here tonight to give that briefing, and she can talk about some next steps, and I can just turn it over to you. That's all right.
Great, yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So I was having some technical difficulties with sharing. So Heather's going to do the present the slides, and I will be saying, next slide, please. So that I can look at my notes. This was a presentation put together by Crystal Maury on my team, and so I'll be using some of her speaker notes as I talk through it, but let Heather pull that up, but tonight, yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about water supply. I think if it's okay with you all, as I go through, you're welcome to stop me and ask questions. I'll pause throughout the presentation as well and see if you've got anything about the section we just talked about. And yeah, and looking forward to the discussion. Titling it Water Supply Overview. And on the next slide, well, I guess I just want to mention, I'm going to be talking to you about the municipal water supply, which is essentially water that we get from our source, we treat it and we deliver it to customers. The Open Space Department has their own water rights portfolio. I'm in the utilities department, so we manage the municipal water supply. The Open Space Department also has a water rights portfolio. They manage water for agricultural purposes, and that's a separate matter that I won't be addressing tonight. So we'll just be focusing again on municipal water supply. Next slide, please. So topics to cover tonight. First, I just want to provide some context on water in the state of Colorado and how the state approaches its water planning. And then we'll dive into locally Boulder. I'll give an overview of what our current supplies are, and then talk to you a little bit about how we do our water supply planning and some projections we've made for our availability into the future. Next slide. So this next slide, here we go. This is a graphic that the state has put together, and you might see it in some other presentations. It's the map of Colorado. That dark blue line is the Continental Divide, and there's some facts on there about water in the state of Colorado. Our current way of life in Colorado really is dependent on extensive water projects or development of water projects. Around 80% of Colorado's water falls on the west slope of the Continental Divide, but 90% of Colorado's population is on the east side. And so to help with that disparity, there are over 27 different water diversion projects that have been developed, both public and private, that carry water from the west slope to the east slope. And then another fun fact, I got lots of fun facts, I guess, on here, but 90% of the water in the state of Colorado is used by the agricultural sector, 7% by municipalities, and 3% by industries. In addition, so the snow that falls in Colorado, when it melts, it flows downstream and provides water to other states. So Colorado is known as a headwater state for that reason. The Colorado River Compact, which you've been hearing about in the news, I'm sure, it's just one of 9 interstate compacts that dictates how water that starts in Colorado's mountains is allocated among other states in the Western US. Okay, next slide.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is it ever the case where agriculture and municipalities are drawing from the same source? And if there is a lower volume, does those percentages stay applied to a lower volume, or does agriculture get a precedence?
So the way water is allocated within the state of Colorado is on a prior appropriations system. So it's Colorado water law. Basically states whoever put the water to use first and got a legal recognition of that has priority to use the water in times of shortage. So throughout the state of Colorado, water is administered on this priority system. And in fact, this map right here is showing Colorado is divided into 7 basins for water rights purposes. Boulder is in the South Platte Basin. So there's a priority-based system that exists for the South Platte Basin. And Boulder has some very senior water rights. But most of the senior water rights in this basin originated as agricultural water rights. And then the municipalities came around a little bit later. and started to develop their own water rights. And so there is a kind of a sharing mechanism. Maybe just as an example in Boulder Creek, there are many, many, many water rights that pull off of Boulder Creek. And the most senior water right belongs to a ditch company. However, municipalities over time have purchased shares in those ditch companies. So as farmers no longer care to farm, they may sell their water rights to others, to municipalities. And so there are, for this number one water right on Boulder Creek, both farmers, municipalities using this water.
Gotcha.
How's that? Does that help? Yeah, it's a complicated system we have in the state of Colorado for water rights administration. But it is kind of a priority-based system. Within continuing like on that idea of water allocation in the South Platte Basin in particular in the state of Colorado, there's a higher demand for water than there is supply. And so that priority-based system does come into play frequently. But when we talk about maybe developing new water supplies for our community or others, because water is over allocated, there's more demand than supply. There's very, very little that anyone can do when developing new water supplies that won't affect someone else or an existing use. So it's something that we think about when we're thinking about water supply planning. Impacted parties, again, your neighboring communities who might be, a lot of our neighbors to the east are growing, right? So they're looking to increase their supply. Agricultural water users, it's a limited resource. So where's the water going to come from? And of course, and then there's the environment. And I'll speak a little bit later about some environmental uses of water. But in essence, the way water was, this system was developed in the 1800s is a beneficial use of water is one that takes water out of the river and puts it to use for municipal purposes, agriculture, environmental or industrial uses. Well, it wasn't until maybe the 1970s that our state started recognizing, there are actual beneficial uses to keeping the water in the streams. And so some new types of water rights have developed over time that keep water in the river for recreation, for aquatic habitat, all sorts of uses. And just one more thing about water rights. I think Heather included a couple memos in your packet tonight that we wrote for City Council this summer. And one of them, I think the July 24th City Council memo, has a little bit more information about water rights and the history of Boulder's water supply development. So that's a place that you can go to get a little bit more information if you're interested. And there's a lot out there on the web as well. Next slide. All right, so in the state of Colorado, the state itself has a water plan, and it's called the Colorado Water Plan. And that plan evaluates a range of water futures out to the year 2050, because there are significant uncertainties tied to areas like climate change, growth, social values. The Colorado Water Plan uses a scenario planning approach that focuses on plausible range of futures. Outcome of the 2023 water plan analysis for the South Platte Basin, which is where Boulder is. The Colorado Water Plan projects a gap of 500 to 800,000 acre feet per year of water by 2050 across the scenarios. And just for context, Boulder uses 17,000 acre feet per year. So that's 30 to 50 times what Boulder uses. It's 2 to 3 times what Denver uses. And so this is again looking at future needs in the state, in the South Platte Basin by growing. We got a lot of people moving into the South Platte Basin. So
Sorry, can you explain the graphic there?
yeah, so So there are a lot of variables that affect what supply might be, what demand might be. And as you go out in time, those variables become more and more uncertain. So climate change is a driver that's a good example of this. Right now, we know what our climate is. We know how climate affects water availability, meaning how precipitation, for example, and how precipitation translates to stream flow and water available for us to use. But as we go out in time, with climate change as a driver, we're not in less and less certainty about how the climate will affect water availability. And so those blue squiggle lines kind of show how, depending on how climate change goes, it could be a range of conditions in the future. And so as you kind of go out on, say, the x-axis there, if you will, that's going out in time. 2023 was where we're at now. The end of that graph or image is the year 2050. And so
So that would be water supply, different
It's-
scenarios.
yeah, that could kind of represent what additional water demands would be in the year 2050, and they would range from down low to up high, depending on how climate change goes, how people conserve water, water conservation practices.
So it's more water demand than.
Yeah, and this really is just it's just a visual to sort of show you how any variable is going to vary over time. The uncertainty will get greater and greater as you look out to the future.
Okay.
Yeah. And those numbers, those lines don't really represent any specific number right now. All right, next slide, please. So we'll take a closer look to home. This map, this is a map of, say, we're out east over Lafayette looking west towards the Continental Divide. Boulder is that area in the red towards the bottom of the screen. So this map shows what Boulder's water supply, the sources of Boulder's water supply are. We've got 3 sources. 2 of them are in the Boulder Creek Basin, and they're shown in those blue polygons on the left there, the North Boulder Creek watershed and the Middle Boulder Creek watershed. And about 2/3 of our supply come from those 2 basins. Water is, most of our water comes in the form of snow in the wintertime. That water melts, we store it in reservoirs, and then as we need it, we deliver it to our water treatment plant through pipelines. And water goes to the Batassa Water Treatment Plant, which is just up the hill off of Sugarloaf here. Water's treated there, and then we send it through a distribution system that goes out to our customers in that red hatched area. I also want to note that we've got hydropower in our system there. Because water is going from a very high elevation to a lower elevation, both to the treatment plants and then into town, there's a lot of pressure that builds up, and we need to reduce that pressure before we distribute it to our customers. So we use hydropower to reduce pressure, and we have the city has 8 hydropower facilities that we manage and operate. And then the other third of our water comes from the western slope, so Colorado River. It's about a third of the water comes from the headwaters of the Colorado River through projects that are operated by the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District. And those areas are identified in the tan. They're on both sides of the divide. Again, water is collected in the river, is transported through the Continental Divide in a very large tunnel. And then it's distributed to people in the South Platte Basin through canals, pipelines. Boulder is one of many entities that receives water from these projects. And we take that water, you can see a red dash line coming from the right side of the screen to the center. That's actually a pipeline going from Carter Lake in Lyons to the Boulder Reservoir Water Treatment Plant. So we've got 2 water treatment plants in our town, one on either side, that we use and operate as well. All right, next slide. So talking about our municipal water supply that we manage, the primary use, of course, is tied to providing reliable treated water to homes and businesses in our community. But because water availability can vary so dramatically from year to year, there are years in which Boulder has surplus supply. And when we have surplus, we use it for non-municipal purposes. This graphic here depicts the relative intensity of both the municipal and non-municipal uses of water. So the non-municipal uses of water, I'll describe briefly for you all. First one is in-stream flow. I mentioned historically, water is diverted out of rivers. In the 1990s, Boulder donated some water rights to the state of Colorado for in-stream flow protection purposes. And so we manage that in-stream flow program on behalf of the state, and that keeps minimum flows in Boulder Creek. Typically in August and September, and then in the winter months, portions of Boulder Creek would go dry without this in-stream flow program. Then there's agricultural leasing. Every year we evaluate what our water needs are for the year, and we determine if we have any surplus supply. If we do have surplus, then we will lease it out on an annual basis to farmers. And this is a way to supplement their water supply, their irrigation water supply. Hydropower is another use of our water. I mentioned that we've got these 8 hydropower facilities in our system. Most of the power that's generated at these facilities is an incidental use of our municipal water supply operations. So the water's running through the pipes. We put hydros in the pipes. It's just going through there anyway. And that's kind of represented in that light blue. But there is some water. There are times when we just run water solely to generate hydropower. We don't need it for municipal uses, but that's a small fraction, and that's kind of represented in that dark blue on the left side of that bar there. And then finally, downstream water users also benefit from some operational decisions that we make that leaves excess water in the creek throughout the year. So if we're not using the water, it's available to other water users downstream from us.
The last 3, do you make money like from ag and?
So agricultural leasing, we do charge, but we do it pretty much at cost. Because we have to pay assessments for most of the water rights that we own. And so we're just trying to recover our costs in doing so. Hydropower, we do have some power purchase agreements with Excel and Tri-State, and we make about $1.5 to $1.7 million per year in revenue from selling power to those entities. And then the downstream users, there's no revenue from that one.
Gifting.
Yeah, it's just changing our operations and keeps the creek wet in the process as well.
You had a slide before which showed something about, I think statewide you said 97% is agriculture and 3% is municipalities, something like that.
90% is agriculture, 7% is municipal use, and 3% is industrial.
Within the town of city of Boulder, what's the?
That's a hard statistic to generate. We've been asked that question before. We just don't have that information. And you'd have to do that analysis either for like the entire Boulder Creek Basin, and it just hasn't been done. But there is a lot of irrigated agriculture that's supported in the Boulder Creek Basin.
But not necessarily in the city of Boulder.
In the city of Boulder, I think that agriculture is more of like it's not really urban agriculture. I think it's more of the rural agricultural practices. And so I think you could look at maybe how much irrigated land does our open space department own? but I don't really have that breakdown. Yeah. I was gonna talk about future water supply planning next, but are there any other questions about our current supply and what we're doing? Okay, I will move on. So a fundamental component of Boulder's water management includes projecting future water demands and modeling the water supply system's ability to meet those demands. The planning is based on population and employment projections and policies that are set forth in the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan. I think you all were visited by planning staff this fall to think about an update to the comprehensive. So as Jonathan mentioned, we put together this information this summer for council to provide them with some of this fundamental information to consider as they were reviewing and updating the Boulder Valley Comp Plan. So as part of that, we don't have all the analyses and careful planning today to fully answer how changes in the comp plan would trickle down to our water supply planning, but we were able to put together some analyses and prepare some future water availability projections to help inform council on future risks to Boulder's water supply and trade-offs as they do consider changes in the comp plan. And so I'll present those modeling results in the next slide, but I just wanted to mention that after the comp plan the update has been completed, we intend on embarking on an updated water supply plan ourselves. The last water plan that we have was done in 2009, and that's kind of our guiding document. We would like to update that plan with any policy changes that come out of the comp plan update.
In terms of the recycling and cleaning of wastewater, would that fall into the source water protection plan, or would that be a separate?
This future plan that we're intending on doing, or the city does have a source water protection plan. Is that what you're?
Yeah, so I guess source water protection plan, that would, from my understanding, I would think that would come from like your surface or your aquifers or whatever sources, nature kind of sources. Then in terms of like the efficiency or the volume of water that can be recycled through wastewater and whatnot, I'm just wondering where that would fall within these.
Oh, I see what you're
documents.
saying. Yeah, that is something that we would look at probably in the source water plan level. And that's because it's considering water rights as well. There are some water rights that can be reused, other water rights that can only be used one time. And so we have to balance what we own or have rights to, and where we do have the ability to reuse some water, we are looking to develop the ability to kind of recycle that water. It would probably though be in the form not of let's treat it like with Westminster, a couple other communities around us, Denver, they have next to their wastewater plant, they have then another water treatment plant that treats it yet to another level. And then they distribute it through purple pipe, say to irrigate golf courses. That would be a difficult endeavor or an expensive endeavor for Boulder because one, we're already a built out city. So you'd be tearing up a lot of roads to run new pipes. But the wastewater plant is also downhill from the rest of town. And so you'd have to be pumping water back into town if you were to kind of clean it up at the wastewater plant, try to reuse it. So we'd be looking at different mechanisms to reuse water. One mechanism is called an exchange, but it's kind of like a trade. So we put the water back in the river at the wastewater plant. We take a like amount of water, maybe upstream, where we already have existing water supply facilities. Okay, next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about the modeling that we did this summer. Again, talking about scenario planning because there's so much uncertainty tied to future conditions, similar to what the state has done in that graphic that we were just talking about. We also used a scenario planning approach in our water supply. So to avoid running and I'll show you what we've done, but to avoid running every possible scenario that could be out there for the future and ending up with thousands of results, we developed 4 scenarios that we analyzed. And we again went out to the year 2050. This is a similar time horizon for the comprehensive plan. But I'll note that long-range water supply planning typically looks 50 years to the future. So when we do our own water supply update following the comp plan, we will probably be looking at a 50-year planning horizon as opposed to a 20-year planning horizon. But I'll go ahead and get into the scenarios that we modeled. Next slide, please. So the 4 scenarios that we looked at are at the top of the screen, and I'll describe them for you. The optimistic and severe scenarios represent more extreme or bookend scenarios, whereas the continuing trends and stress scenarios are more moderate projections. Our first scenario is an optimistic one, where warming is less severe and doesn't significantly impact our water supplies. Continued trends assumes climate change results in the Colorado Front Range as a whole, beginning to experience minor reductions in water supply. Stressed assumes the Western United States experiences significant water stress. That stress sparks significant policy changes on the Colorado River. And the last scenario is more pessimistic in nature and assumes intense warming that has a detrimental impact on regional water supplies.
Okay, cookie.
Peter.
Okay.
And for these 4 scenarios, we've identified 4 primary drivers, 2 of which represent supply-focused drivers and 2 of which represent demand-focused drivers. So the climate-driven stream flow changes, those range from a 10% increase in stream flow in an optimistic future, all the way down to a 30% decrease in stream flow in the severe future. The first 3 scenarios encapsulate the climate change risks that have been identified in the Colorado Water Plan. But the 4th scenario goes beyond what the state has modeled in severity. And we take a look at just some more severe scenarios than the state did. And then for the Colorado River impacts, there are significant unknowns related to major policy decisions that are outside of the city's control. So with those uncertainties in mind, under 2 of the 4 scenarios, we are assuming water stress under the Colorado River either will not be significant enough to trickle down and directly impact Boulder's water supply, or there will be mitigation projects that Boulder could participate in. And then under the other 2 scenarios, we do assume climate change will invoke water stress, or enough water stress to result in moderate and major decreases to Boulder's Colorado River supplies. Okay, they're all up there. Okay, I have mine going step by step, but this is good. Yeah, no, great. Leave it here. On the demand-focused drivers, first one I'll talk about is the climate-driven irrigation changes. So this assumes or recognizes that our urban landscapes will need more water to survive and thrive as temperatures increase. And then the last one is additional water conservation. And that recognizes that with increased water scarcity, the motivation and uptake of water conservation strategies would increase. Water conservation achievements to date are already considered across all scenarios. Under the optimistic and continued trends scenarios, we would anticipate increased efficiency that's in line with our current water efficiency plan. And as water stress worsens, we assume water conservation efforts would ramp up to things that are achievable with major capital expenditures.
I guess for the last line, I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly. So let me say back to you.
Mhm.
You're assuming that as climate change gets worse, people would use less water in general because they would feel bad, or it would be more costly or something like that.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the idea But I guess if we're thinking about the overall water supply, shouldn't that be put more on like agriculture than us as individuals? Like, would that be balanced out? Because if I'm seeing, oh, I'm gonna have like decreased water supply as an individual, but my agriculture farm uses 90% of my water, I'm probably not gonna be too happy. And I'm vegetarian, so I don't even benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like I would just like, I feel like I understand where you're going, but if I'm an individual, like that just seems really unfair to me when I'm like really not the problem.
and some of it is we're trying to manage, live within our means.
Yeah.
So we've got a set amount of, right now, we've got our water supply. So how do we make that go further? So if demand is gonna increase, say to grow the same type of land, support the same type of landscaping, we're gonna need more water. So to live within our existing water supply, do we then switch our landscaping? Do we decrease our uses so that we're not supporting the same level of landscaping at the same type of landscaping? And that's an example of that. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but if the climate does warm and we want to maintain the same level of green in our community, we're going to need to be using more water and we're going to have to go find some more water. So we could go out and turn to the agricultural community and say, you should be more efficient and let me buy then some of your water rights, but that has an impact on the agricultural community as well. So it's balancing, kind of what are all the values that Boulder has? And in the comp plan, it does recognize that Boulder supporting local agriculture is a community value. So there's a lot that we're looking at balancing when we do this planning. Yeah.
So pivoting off that question, has there been any type of analysis done on the, I guess, cost effectiveness or kind of the biggest benefit for the least amount of cost? Like, would you say procuring or buying up, water rights is kind of like to increase the volume? That would be the first priority, and then after that would be like water efficiency, and then after that would be a water recycling. And is there
You're getting ahead of me.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll talk about that later, but yes, it is on our mind, and I'll tell you how we're thinking about that.
And then second, and if it's ahead, just let me know. Has there been an analysis on the economic contribution of different water usages? Like, so water is like reliance. The city to function properly needs this much of volume, and this is the economic activity associated with that versus agriculture versus industry. Has that been done? Is that part of the conversation?
I think that is something that has been done more at the state level, and I guess I shouldn't say I know specifically about an economic analysis that has been done, but I think that type of thing would be done at the state level, and it may have been part of the water plan, state water plan as well. We haven't done that at the local level.
Okay.
And I guess my other question is, how did you take into consideration the increase of data centers, which are having huge impacts on other communities, not Colorado and beyond, in water usages and costs of water?
And in our modeling,
That's been a newer trend, so maybe you did this before that became like a big.
yeah, we haven't considered data centers, the expansion of water use in our community, because we don't really have any, and we're not, I think IBM might be a data center, but
It is.
it's an existing condition for us, and we're not. At least for the horizon that we did this analysis, we weren't considering any additional usage by data centers.
Could I just make back to one of your earlier comments, and I just wanted to bring this in as you were talking about just thinking about our natural systems and the amount of water that they're going to need. It's one of the reasons that our department is really trying to get out ahead of that issue to say, again, a lot of the research is showing that with mature tree canopies, as an example, you're actually conserving a lot of water. They are outdoor heat pumps essentially. So the reason that I bring that up is the sooner we get on building that mature canopy now, the better, because now we start to rehydrate our soils in a way that actually hold moisture. And so we've been doing a lot of pioneering research on understanding how carbon and water track together. So essentially carbon follows water. And this is why we have spent a lot of time building up our nature-based solutions team in the climate space, and it connects very deliberately to thinking about the long-term forecasting and water needs. But no one has this totally figured out. I mean, we've been using a lot of the modeling and a lot of the research to drive some of our policy actions, and that's why you're seeing it come up, whether it's in our landscaping codes and our building codes, and driving a lot of work that we do. And on your comment about data centers, I think it's a really good one. And there's a lot of speculation and talk right now about what we're seeing statewide, what we're seeing nationally, what we're seeing globally. I was just on a call earlier today with colleagues in Australia. We're saying, what are you all doing about this huge, big, sticky issue about data centers? A lot of it is being driven, of course, by utilities who are talking about projects that they are reserving capacity for. But what I will say is that the majority of those are not tracking. We're not seeing the growth that about a year ago when utilities all over the country are like, we have to reserve capacity. And so everyone thought, whoa, that's the capacity we anticipate seeing from data centers. Now, I'm not diminishing the fact that, yes, they are incredibly resource intensive for sure. We, just as Kim was saying, the one that we do have, IBM, which is now Kyndryl, we are starting to have conversations about what is their long-term forecasting. Are they going to grow? Are they going to double, triple in size? We don't know. How would that impact our local resources, and how can we respond to that, whether it be in our own codes? But the state is doing this too. They're looking at really aggressive policy to say, how do we regulate the growth of this industry? Because it is pretty substantial when you look at statewide implications for sure. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
This topic is really fascinating to me. In your opinion, where is the agricultural industry, at least within Colorado, on implementing kind of best practices in water efficiency? Do they have a lot of room for improvement in terms of like drip irrigation, other, conservation measures?
Yeah, there certainly is room for improvement, and there's a lot of initiatives and partnerships out there to, most of it comes down to funding, right? And so provide the funding to help the industry become more efficient. Who's providing the funding? Some of it's coming from the state, but there's partnerships between municipalities and farmers. Municipalities will fund for your efficiency improvements. And then there are some laws in the state that now allow like a municipality to kind of take advantage of that, the amounts, the savings, sort of transfer that over to municipal use. There's also, though, the interest in keep maintaining the agricultural economy. And so rather than some other practices, shared practices look at maybe a farmer will fallow some of their fields on a rotating basis, and the water that is not used on one field 1 year then is used by a municipality. So these water sharing practices that continue to support both agriculture and municipal interests. All right, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so we took the 4 scenarios that we just described and ran those through our water supply system model to identify where we had surplus and gaps. This slide is talking about our overarching water supply policy, which we call our reliability criteria, and it's essentially our level of service goals. These were established in 1988, so might be time to take another look at them, but they aim to balance the costs and environmental impacts of increased reliability with the consequences of temporary water shortages. And they dictate that around 95% of the time, we want our water system to be reliable enough not to require any sort of water use restrictions. And then in some years, We allow for outdoor watering restrictions that range from lawns going dormant to landscapes dying. And in extremely rare condition, we might consider indoor water use restrictions as well. So for the 4 scenarios that I described, even if that scenario experienced a shortage, modeled shortage in supplies, one or a few of the years, as long as the shortages were less severe than the reliability criteria, we would consider that a passing model run, and we would say our supply is reliable. So all this to say is we do allow for shortages, water shortages.
Is that really 1 out of 1,000 years?
Yes.
So-
That is how it is written. Essentially, it's saying basically like,
Never.
but for an very extreme situation, we will not reduce indoor water use.
So this is the ideal kind of outcome, or this is not dictated by current or future conditions. This is.
Yeah, this is the criteria around which we have built our water supply system. So,
Okay, so this is what we're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
We do not want to have,
yeah,
we do not want to have water restrictions
Who,
for
like-
more than 5 out of 100 years.
yes.
Okay.
Was this written by city council, so to get it changed, it would have to be city council?
It was, so we had,
Colorado State rules.
it was the city council that approved it in 1988. It was another one of our water planning efforts. So we would bring this, if we're gonna.
If you want
a
to.
policy, yeah, we would bring it to city council.
And we've been able to achieve this since 1988. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see where we want to go next here. Okay, so let's skip to the results of our modeling. And I'll walk you through this here. So this is an example of a passing model run. This is a reference scenario using historic data. So it hasn't been adjusted for climate yet, historical climate conditions. The gray bar represents average water demands associated with today's population. And the blue water supply droplet represents the sustainable water supply that's available. When the demand bar is well below the water droplet, as it is in this case, that indicates we have a surplus in our water supply. And when the bar rises above the droplet, that indicates that we would have a potential gap in supply. Let's see here. Can you go back one more slide? Okay, this one here, call out the 10% factor of safety. We built in a factor of safety into our demands to encapsulate some risks that can't be effectively modeled, like natural disasters and infrastructure outages. I also want to point out, so these demands, the water demands, again, represented by the gray bar, they've been adjusted up for climate change and then down for water conservation. And the amount of water conservation that we are kind of achieving in these scenarios is represented sort of by that gray hatched line above the gray bar. Okay, now we can go to the next one. So this is kind of again, we analyze these 4 scenarios, and here's the outcome of the modeling runs. So in 3 of the 4 scenarios, optimistic, continued trends, and stressed, we have sufficient supply to meet demands associated with Boulder's current population. Again, no additional growth out to the year 2050. And then that severe scenario might look a bit intimidating. So we've got a potential supply gap there. But the conditions, again, that we're modeling in this scenario they would fundamentally alter Western United States' relationship with water. And Boulder is in frankly, a far better position than other communities are at this time. Next slide. So then we, of course, are anticipating a population growth. And so these orange bars represent the additional demands from population growth. We understand our current population water demands very well, but water demands that are tied to growth can be harder to project, and this is because most growth in Boulder is affiliated with both infill and redevelopment. You know, we don't have a lot of new land to develop. As an example, dense apartment complexes can use significantly less water per person than triplexes or single-family homes. And for redevelopment, the net impact to the city's overall water demand is dependent on how much water was used on the site prior to redevelopment. Yeah,
Right now, there's no type of probability assigned to any of these four scenarios.
that's correct. Yeah, and scientific community would tell you you can't assign probability to their climate projections. So based on this information, this data, I think Boulder has a pretty robust water supply that can reliably meet demands that include anticipated growth under many of those climate scenarios and the other scenarios, variables that we've modeled. But there still could be some risks that we need to consider for future planning. And so again, we want to continue this investigation and kind of evaluating risks through this integrated water supply plan, which we talked about doing after the comp plan.
Is this assuming water rates stay exactly how they are?
Water rate.
Rates, like the
Right,
amount.
yes,
Okay.
exactly, yeah,
And we assume those would stay the same. They don't just randomly change.
yes, exactly. And I'll talk about, first I just want to mention, so some of these scenarios have a supply surplus. Others have a gap. And so if you go to the next slide, I just want to talk about what do we do under these scenarios where we have a surplus. This is the years of surplus, or these are scenarios where we can still grow into our water supply. So existing water rights, we're not going to change anything. We have room to grow. But as we grow into the water rights that we have, some of these surplus non-municipal uses will be affected. We'll have less surplus water to dedicate to them. So agricultural leasing is likely to go down in the future. The amount of water we're leaving in the stream for downstream users is going to decrease. And then to some extent, our in-stream flow protection might decrease as well. Our in-stream flow program is tied to water use restrictions. So if we're having to implement water use restrictions more frequently, that might affect the amount of water that we have available to leave in the rivers. And then next slide, please. This one talks about if we need to develop new water supply. And again, this is something really to be further explored in an integrated water supply plan that's coming. So Adam, to get to your question about what are we looking at and how do we prioritize an integrated water supply plan, really, I guess fundamentally how I would describe it is we're looking at demand management and supply management and how are we balancing the two. So is it worth our investment to make advancements in water conservation? Or do you put that investment into developing new supplies, acquiring new supplies? New supplies, they're hard to come by these days. They're very expensive and it takes a long time to develop them. So what we're kind of laying out here are 3 different levels of new water supply development that we could do. Right now, we're sort of functioning in the stretch level. Basically, how do we stretch our existing supplies to make them go further? And as we get into maybe looking at needing more supplies, we get into these different levels of partnership or competition. If we were to have to function in the space of competition, this is definitely a water management strategy that we're not in right now. And however, some other communities are. So this is, again, we will continue this investigation as we do a deeper dive into our water planning in the future. And we'll be looking at these trade-offs, costs, and developing a water management strategy going forward.
How closely do you guys work with the nature-based team? I'm asking because I remember last month Brett was saying we did something, maybe someone else remember exactly what it was, around desertification and it like impacted the snowpack in the mountains. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it's like that is a way to stretch potentially our supply. I don't know.
Yeah, he was talking about the desertification analysis that we've been doing or conducting with Boulder County to look
Yeah.
at some of our agricultural lands between, out in the county. And when you see the loss of that topsoil, what happens during wind events, it is a smaller version of what we see with big dust storms coming from the southwest, whether Arizona, Nevada, and when you see that dust settle on our snowpack, obviously it induces quicker melting. So I think it was a
It
little
was
bit
the
of
it
that.
was the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way of something we can do that would get more snow? It was the negative effect.
Well,
Yeah.
It's the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, I think people are looking at cloud seeding.
Yeah.
That's true.
They are.
You're mentioning was the 5 square miles of regenerative agriculture. Like a certain, there's measurable amount of rain it can.
Yeah.
Precipitate.
Yes, that's what
That was.
Yeah.
Something positive to say?
And then I would just one more slide and that's our takeaways. Thank you for bearing with me, but key takeaways. And again, this was kind of prepared for council, so maybe some of the stuff is more relevant to them. But first, I think at this point, we are in a good position with our water supply right now. And even considering some of the moderate climate change impacts and anticipated growth, we're in a good position. But due to some uncertainty that exists, there are still risks to our supplies that should be considered when we're planning for the future. We're not alone. The whole region is dealing with water supply uncertainty that comes with climate change, and we're all trying to plan for unprecedented conditions. And then finally, the information that we put together through these modeling runs. The intent was to provide a sense of risks that can impact our water supply and trade-offs to consider when looking at future policy changes to the comp plan. And then, but we'd like to do a deeper dive into planning so that we are positioning ourselves well to have a reliable supply for the future. That's what I've got.
Thank you. Like I feel more positive.
Yeah, this was really positive. Given how like generally positive it is, are there any, and there are probably other priorities that don't look as good, are there any actions you're currently doing, like projects around water conservation? Are you doing any like conservation projects, or kind of just like same old, because it is pretty positive, I mean.
Yeah,
compared to
no,
other
we
cities or,
are.
like, what you hear in the news about other places.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this are good, the position we're in goes back to, I don't know, some really great planning from previous generations
Yeah.
and related to our growth policies, right? We're not, if you look at Aurora, they're growing very, very quickly. Erie is growing very, very quickly, and they're scrambling to find water to meet their growing demand. So I think our growth policies have helped us stay on top of our planning. But that said, we are definitely engaging in water conservation. We've got a water conservation program that trying to ramp up a bit. Some other communities have more robust programs than we have, but there certainly is community interest out there. I mean, our communities just, they want to do the right thing, right? And sometimes we get calls, it's dry. It's not dry enough that we would need to implement water use restrictions because we've got, we've planned for dry times as well. We'll get calls from community members saying, why aren't you implementing water use restrictions? So our community members really do, they're very tuned in, I think, to the climate we live in and water use practices. And so we're trying to develop through our water conservation program, really just like information that we can provide that really lends itself to like, how do you use water wisely?
Also add, sorry, well, I'll make it quick. A couple other areas that I think I just wanted to connect to that are also tracking, obviously the comp plan is taking a renewed look at water more broadly. the policies that are ongoing right now that council is adopting, the water-wise and fire-wise landscaping ordinance, really starts to use a lot of this background and data in terms of how do we plan for the future. And so I think that one is a really clear example of how we can come up with an approved landscaping improvement plant list to start to signal that how do we make sure we're not trending to the right side of those charts in terms of the extreme, doing what we can do now because it matters, the decisions that we're making today.
Would it be possible to bring up the second to last slide? If not, that's okay. I'm not sure if this has been done, but I'm wondering what you would think of if this could be enhanced or replicated in terms of like on a per, what's the AF acre flow?
Acre feet.
Acre feet, on like a
Volume
per
of water.
acre feet volume of water. What is the kind of the most cost effective, kind of approach, like, procuring water rights?
Yeah.
Versus water efficiency versus recycling of water, like all the different solutions. And then not only the cost, but then the potential volume of how much could be procured.
Yeah.
And that would just be really interesting to kind of say.
I think that's something we'll get into again with this future water plan that we do. Looking at, what are our options? And it might not even come down to what's the most cost effective. A lot of it's opportunistic. Like if we're trying to develop, maybe it's like increasing storage from an existing reservoir versus buying some new water rights, or if something comes along, it's these opportunities are kind of rare. You may want to take it, even if it's not number one on your list.
Yeah, right.
But I think that is the way, I think we're gonna be looking at it, so, as you've described, some way where we can help set up a priority system or just some criteria for how we might evaluate which options to pursue.
Yeah, one thing I've seen in other analyses is they call it like a MAC chart, like a marginal abatement cost curve. And basically it's like the y-axis is like the cost of reduction or savings per unit, like acre foot. And then the width of the bar is how much volume applies to that. And I found that to be like really interesting data visualization of comparing different solutions. So the project Drawdown has used this before when they look at all the different solutions for reducing carbon. They say, okay, what's the cost? And then the width is
The magnitude.
Yeah.
What type of chart you said it was?
It's called a MAC, M-A-C-C, marginal abatement cost curve.
Okay.
Basically, it's a bar chart where the cost or the savings is the y-axis, and then the width of the bar on the x-axis is how much volume it can apply. And I've just found that really like insightful and powerful when looking at trade-offs and where to start.
Thanks.
One other question I have, because I'm working on this for my work right now, have we done any assessment, and it relates to water, I promise. Have done any assessment on PFAS in our water streams? And how that's gonna affect water and any policy considerations?
We sample
That.
at various locations in our water supply. And I don't believe we have had any detects
Oh, that's good.
PFAS.
Oh, it's a law in Minnesota right now, and so I was just curious about for other states we're looking at that.
Yeah, I can't speak too intelligently about that, but I know that the state, many entities, water users in the state are looking and sampling for PFAS.
We did actually have, it wasn't in our municipal supply, but one of the things that we've been tracking obviously is the water supply and challenges at San Lazaro.
Yeah.
Which is just outside the city. And so that is one area that the state has done some sampling and seen some higher than.
That was the one that got to my desk.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Not my company, but I had to go deal with it, and we have to adapt some policies. I work for a manufacturing company right inside city limits, but when things like that happen,
Yeah.
there's a Minnesota law happening, and then I got that is.
Oh, yeah.
Curious to know if you have a pulse on if there's discussion at the state legislature or any other on recommended changes or modifications to the priority-based system. Is that something that's even on the radar, or is it so like locked in that it's?
It's, from time to time, somebody may question it, but there really hasn't been any momentum. I think so many water users have kind of planned around the priority-based system
Yeah,
that to change that would really upend everything that they've sort of developed. And so I think it would certainly be an uphill battle to change the priority-based system. That said, I mean, there are modifications like within the priority-based system that allow for, say, more flexibility, or we talked about like the water sharing arrangements between municipalities and agricultural entities. So there are new policies and programs that are introduced that kind of work within the priority-based system, but allow for a little bit more to be done.
something drastic would have to happen for some conversations to traction.
Yeah.
You might like the book Where the Water Goes by David Owen. If you're really into this stuff.
Yeah.
You guys read it? It's
No,
really good. And he he literally follows the Colorado River, but then as he's following it, he talks about where the water goes.
Oh, yeah, right, of course.
It's
David.
it's
David
fun.
who?
Anyway, you seem like you'd be
Yeah,
David
David
Owen.
Owen.
Dave
Owen.
Owen. Okay, yeah, thank you. That's great.
Water, it gets into water rights.
Alan Fletcher version.
Yes.
Very early version of that.
Okay, Thanks for your time. Thanks for your interest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy to share this with you, and if,
Yeah, now you
Now I
can.
can have this.
That's so good.
thank you. I mean, certainly happy to come back in the future with anything else we're working on.
Thank you. Yeah.
The annual letter to council is next. Do you want to tee this up or do you want me to?
Sure, I could do it really quickly. I promise. So for board members that haven't gone through this, there's been a practice over the years where city council reaches out to boards and commissions asking for your guidance, your thoughts, your reflections, and your interests in the things that they should prioritize in their own work plan. It was just a few years ago that council went to an every other year or a 2-year work plan, and so that changed the cadence of the input. So the last time that boards provided letters or feedback was for their last retreat, which was in 2024. And so we skipped a year. So last year there was no request. And now we're back. And the request from the clerk's office is to essentially welcome boards and commissions to provide any thoughts that you have for council for the retreat, which will happen in mid-ish January. So there's a template that's been created, which is kind of nice. Before it was a little bit of a free for all. The structure was all over the place. Some boards had a bullet list, 1 page. Some had like a nice tome of all the things. And so the tee up here is I don't believe that well, what I would suggest to the board, and certainly it's your purview, however you want to handle this, is to carve out time at your December meeting to really think about the key priorities that you want to advance. You'll have time also to finalize it if you need to revise it, but the deadline to have them submitted is December 19th to the clerk's office. So functionally, what that means is together think about what the priorities that you think council as the policymaker should be prioritizing in their next work plan. And then there's a number of ways that the board can think about drafting that up. In the past, There have been some volunteers from the board to take a pass at actually saying, here's what we talked about. And then sit down, put pen to paper, and then bring it back, and then as a group, do a little group editing together. In years past, there was more of a directive to staff to say, here are the concepts that we want you to capture. You go draft it and bring it back to us. Certainly will. You sound way too excited about that.
Stop it. You can tell you guys to do that.
Well, it was a request. It was a request. Like, huh?
Why not that? I like that poetry idea.
Other things.
Sorry.
That was definitely a quick.
So whatever the board wants to do with that is fine, but that's the tee up. And if you want to take it from here and talk about process and how you all want to move it forward, that's totally fine.
And it does say that they should be expected to be completed in 12 months or less. I don't know if that's new. That's what this. What we suggest. Is that what it's saying in this? Is this the template?
That is the template. I'd like to verify that because I do have a 2-year work plan.
Yeah,
Where's that?
I think only I have.
Do we get like, then do we get like feedback on like if our request made it into the work plan? Like, how does it go? Like, what happens with the letter afterwards?
Yeah.
And last time, or, it was on the board last time, like, what happened to your requests? Did they happen?
No, it did not. Well, what am the resilience? No.
Yeah, so it can, it's a really good question. What happens is then, council gets letters from all of their
Yeah.
boards and commissions.
All competing priorities.
Yeah, and then they take that into their retreat in January, and then what'll happen is, they start going through a process by which they identify their top priorities as individuals, as council members. And the way they did this before is that they each kind of pitched their ideas. I was there, they had like whiteboards and they came up with and then they did some voting on which do we think we can manage in 2 years. Oh, well, we have like 5 of us really think this is a priority. And that's how they came up with 10. And then they added one lucky number 11, which was the update to the climate action plan, which is okay, because it was already on our work plan.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
So they will take your thoughts, your guidance, your feedback into account. And you'll know if it made it, because obviously that becomes council's work plan that is very public. They orient a lot of their discussions and a lot of the staff work and the things that we have to orient our work plans around to achieve those.
But either way, if they read it, like, and maybe it's not one of their 10 priorities, but it could be something they're more like susceptible to, and it's like
That's true.
slowly
Mhm.
working out.
And honestly, it could be continue a thing, evolve a thing.
Yeah.
You all could come up with 1 thing, 5 things. My recommendation is not make it a long list, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's certainly your
I think
decision.
I was trying to understand whether it's better to focus on 1 or 2 and be really clear versus like do a long list, but seeming like this detailed focus
I think so.
is better.
I think 1, maybe 2.
Whatever other people think.
And you said December meeting, I'm like, oh, that seems late, but now it's November already. So we only have the December. Okay.
Fair point. And I cannot, did we send out the last letter?
Yes.
Okay,
It's in
so,
here.
okay, good. So you do have that, the packet. So you can kind of get a sense, but that one was fair. I think that was more than 2 pages.
That's 2 pages.
It is okay. I guess I should just open up the packet and.
Do you remember working on it?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll give you 1 guess. What was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we know. Yes, yes.
This might be its time.
Would you like to try again for your idea?
Of course I would like to. I mean, I said, I don't think they're the hiring freeze, so hiring somebody is maybe not the best thing to put in there, but
Well, given what's happening nationally, I think could be an interesting topic.
yeah, no, when Brett even said that they're having a lot of conversations about it. So. and we
I
did-
think it seems like a good idea. I would be fine with that one. Could tie a few other things into it.
And are we allowed, the 4 of us, to just email the 4 of us?
No.
No,
We're
right?
gonna Google Doc.
God.
Yeah.
Technically not all at the same time, but like that. would really happen.
Yeah, I understand the challenge that it presents, but it definitely is a violation of open meeting laws, sunshine laws, so to be able to have conversation, even though you are kind of technically making a decision about your priorities, it's something that it's an important and very strict guideline that council enacts with their boards.
So if we were to meet all four of us, then we have to have a public announcement.
Correct.
Yeah,
And have the meeting
Correct.
accessible.
That's why
Yeah.
they're saying we use the next meeting to do it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we have some time now too to like
Yeah, definitely.
get next steps. I think it was
Yeah.
really helpful last time people came pretty prepared.
What was the, do you want to walk us through the process for last time?
I can exactly remember it. I don't remember. I mean, people, I think, did some, be like, about what ideas were, and then pretty
Mhm.
fairly easily came up with these three ideas based on people's, what they brought.
Who drafted among all?
And then I wrote it up,
You
and then
wrote it
we
up.
edited it in, which I'm happy to do again.
Mhm.
We edited it in Google Docs. I think what was helpful was people who did like research, because
Yeah,
Climate
I have a lot of
department
links in here.
is doing a lot, climate department's doing a lot of work already, so like, there was a lot of ideas. I feel like you were like, well, we actually do that already, you know, like, so. Not coming to the December meeting, just having like thought about something, but like made sure the city's not doing it already and made sure, kind of make sure it fits the context of what's going on is really helpful. Because we do have a lot of great work going on. So that was really helpful, and then I drafted it and we edited it.
Are we allowed to ask, is there something that is at risk of going away that's currently happening that with, maybe I misunderstood all the city council debate about budget, but is there anything that's like we would want to keep that might accidentally end up on the chopping block with different budget concerns, or is it that we should make sure, or is there anything at risk?
That's a fair question. No, I don't think so. The process that we started well over, gosh, it's been more than 6 months now as we started to catch the scent of what the budget was going to look like, and we started to actually do the reductions and reducing service levels in certain ways that if you go to a certain level, it doesn't make sense to keep doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so at least from my perspective, and I can give this a little bit more thought, at least for our department, we were really thoughtful about those kind of impacts, and it wasn't super sizable. Across the board, there are some things that did go away across the city organization, whether or not you would want as a group to suggest those, and I'm happy to send those out in an email, things that I am aware of.
I think I'd be curious, I'm not saying I'm gonna go advocate for them or not, but it's always good to know if there's something I think is, or we think is happening and it's not happening anymore. Sometimes,
Okay.
I think that could just be interesting. And maybe that they were great at the time and now they don't make sense to find it anymore,
When you said prioritize Boulder's food systems program, it was more, it was not necessarily the push for, adoption of more. Yeah, it was not.
No, it was a more broader holistic program that looked at all different aspects of food.
Yeah.
That was my own little side project.
Cause you wrote it. Oh, and I like the Google Doc, I just opened it, that you did you write this? This Google Doc in the letter?
Right.
Well, is it just this letter that's in the?
No, then you click the letter and it goes to this food.
Oh, yeah. you
For
have
deep
links,
dive
right?
at the intersection of food and climate and Boulder, please see this document.
Oh, yeah, that's probably me.
This is really impressive, this is 4 pages long.
Really, it's too much time in my hands. Well, there's actually, there's like a lot of groups in different cities working on
Yeah.
food-based stuff that I was like part of. I did write it, but like, there's a lot of underground work happening around the country in this area. Yeah, I mean, we can copy paste this, which is easy, but what, I'm curious how other people like have thoughts already.
For me, nature-based solutions.
Yeah.
And the 5 square miles, that was very powerful, I thought, that came up last week. Where Wood said if you you change the flora and fauna in 5 square mile. I think it's 5 square mile, not 5 mile radius, so I think it's 5 square miles.
Mhm.
You have an impact on the, I guess, is it climate or weather in that area is what I've heard. So I would love to use that. Like, I know this is a bad example. It's kind of like the 15-minute cities, right? Which is not a big thing. Any people, it's getting beat down by some groups right now. But that concept I thought was amazing. It's like, if that's all it takes. It's communities can feel like they're making a difference by working in their 5 square miles, right? And it just doesn't seem like a non-achievable
Right.
task, right? It's like, you're not telling them to stop driving, fly and all those kind of, just like, in your little 5 square miles, let's see what we can do.
Yeah,
I thought that was a powerful concept, if that can make it in.
I think that's great. One thing to remember about, which makes this kind of a hard exercise, is so council's only gonna have 10 priorities. So we're basically saying, like, what should your 10 priorities be as a whole city? And so maybe fitting that in within another one. of the
Within
parts,
another one,
Or
yeah.
like, how do we do X, Y, D to the nature-based solutions program so that it's more robust or something? But I think that might be a little too granular. I don't know.
Well, it could be,
Like
sorry,
fitting
but
it in something else. I think it's great.
wait to be called.
What were you gonna
Bad
say?
habit. Well, my comment was gonna be, just thinking about how to take that concept and apply that into something that council could use.
Mhm.
So in other words, what Brett was presenting is really the focus of all of our biodiversity work. And so it could be, I'm making it up, could be utilizing or really prioritizing biodiversity and those particular outcomes as council adopts and thinks about all of its policies that may come before the body.
Yeah.
And so really prioritizing that in a way that it isn't right now. I mean,
Yeah.
we are as a department, that could be the way it is written. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, while you type that, right, it's like, I see I do see sustainable equity and resilience framework. I see that's ingrained in the city of Boulder. Like,
Yes.
I don't think we need to repeat that,
I agree.
right? And so
I agree.
I think I'm good with keeping the food systems. I'm not thought about the resiliency plan much, but maybe put in like what we think should be a focus under the nature-based solutions, right? And
I also like what you said about like getting the community engaged. I think that could be like not a proposal, but a lens to think about
Yeah.
it.
that's
And
true,
to
yeah.
drive community engagement. Obviously, individuals aren't gonna be able to change the whole thing, but they do have an impact on their area, and like that could apply to the Louis game, or that could apply to landscaping. But having that like community engagement across neighborhoods,
Mhm.
oftentimes when they get engagement, I feel like it's the same 10 people.
No, but like, I just saw in my neighborhood. No one.
Same word.
I see the sign for, I have a heat pump in my neighborhood. There's a guy who's got a sign on Galvin. I have a sign, but I think those kind of things, I think do help, promote, what the climate initiatives in Boulder,
Yeah.
people adopting those policies. I think it helps.
And I would put it into, but I like the biodiversity and the food one, but maybe we specifically target a thing.
Maybe.
No, like target like a community engagement
Yeah.
lens to our
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar to like a sustainable equity resilience framework.
Yeah,
We
but
have more.
really like focus on community.
No, I think what they would say is we have a whole office of equity, belonging and engagement. And so what is it that you want different than what they're already doing to do more of the thing? And so I'm just trying to
Yeah.
troubleshoot this and get it into language that would be, if I'm a council member
Mhm.
saying, I'm a policymaker. What do you want me to do?
Well, I guess I'd be totally honest, I didn't even know that office existed until I joined this board. So clearly, I'm sure they're doing a good job in some places, but they're not doing a good job in other places.
And would you draft this, keeping an eye on who's gonna be on council next year?
Oh, yeah, we'll have to revisit it once we see the final.
There's definitely a bit of a shift based on results coming through right now.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody really knows Rob that well yet, I don't know. It's hard to say, because a lot of the people are still in council, I guess maybe a little bit, yeah. Okay.
But in some things about economics, bring economic resiliency, it seems. You'll
Do-
be happy.
I'm wondering with the biodiversity thing, there's a lot of like metrics obviously around emissions and like. Is there something around like using biodiversity as a metric too? I mean, I imagine we do in the natural based solutions team, as something more citywide that could like, basically like how they make decisions.
Yes, and one of the ways that that's showing up, we just became, I think the board knows, a signatory to the Berlin Pact, which is, we are one of just a handful, like 3 US cities to be a signatory. There's not that many globally. And the pact lays out that framework for how do you advance biodiversity within jurisdictions in ways that are very quantitative and qualitative. So we, as departments, we'd say, here are the things that we already meet, here are the things that we need to do. And so that could be an anchor point to say, really advance the city's commitment to biodiversity. A lot of this is already laid out in the pact, which the mayor and the city manager signed last month. So
Okay, that's all.
Oh,
That's a
really-
good anchor point.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Are there any, like I just saw, I guess in the news, you had a greenhouse gas.
inventory.
Yeah, and is there any other such report that you would like to work on? Like that, you're like, or any other initiatives in the climate commission?
What do you want, council?
Yeah. What would you like, yeah, what is it like?
Budget cuts.
Like, what other like, big comprehensive plan we could use?
You need to turn this recording off right now. I think that there's some really interesting opportunities. Next year is going to be an important year. You're going to hear council talk about signaling to Excel expectations over the next year leading up to a potential opt-out in 2026. I think there's a lot in that energy space around affordability, around reliability and resilience, around hardening the system against wildfire risks, I think is a really big piece. Council is going to be moving in that direction, of course, but I do think it's a critical one. I think there's a lot of work that we have been thinking about as a department that is more in the public health space. And it's one of the areas that we usually defer to our counterparts in Boulder County. But so much of what we're learning now as we really dive deep into a lot of our equity-based work, much of the work we do is really pinned to how do we improve and enhance quality of health in our community, whether it's indoor air quality, whether it is specific pollution issues, talking about things like ash cleanup at Belmont, thinking about San Lazaro. So a lot of our work is now starting to trend into that public health space. And we as an organization, I don't think are really well coordinated in that way. And this is not a well thought out kind of policy direction, but I think there's something there that could really be crafted in a really beautiful way too.
I wonder if there's almost a way to tie these things together, like a lot of these are like filling gaps that the federal government is cutting funding for between the energy, the food, the public health things and roll back different policies, and so it's like I don't know if we can come up with I like how Hannah in her recommendation had a position. I know there's a hiring freeze, but some type of like initiative where we tie it into like all these outcomes, like food policy affects who gets food and who doesn't get food. Like there's a equity aspect of it. I know there's this equity office and there's a Boulder Public County Health, but I wonder if there's a way to tie that in and energy, like who loses power first, you know, when they can't pay their Excel bill, or who's at risk when energy sources fail, or who's most affected by wildfire. You know, obviously there's some combination, there's like some type of like community equity lens focus to pitch as like a common, focusing on one bigger theme. And these are like different aspects of it between like community resilience almost, and the biodiversity, the food, the energy, like thinking about someone's day-to-day life. As like a one solution with all these different aspects, and then they could either hatch onto the big solution, or they could pick a little one within there that like piques someone's interests. And like could each, you know,
Yeah.
but one bigger theme that everything else ties up to. Yeah.
Jonathan, I guess I have a question. Is the purpose of this kind of letter memo to the council, is it supposed to be above and beyond the comments, the observations, the recommendations that we've made throughout our meetings at kind of a higher level of, you know, from the information and the interaction that we've had, we feel like these are the priorities we think are the most important, or within our discussions, we feel like you can give guidance on really making momentum within these areas. I'm just trying to get a sense of how do we, because I feel like I've, you know, given my thoughts or my feedback and whatnot. And so to the council, how is this kind of different from what we've doing within the department? Discussions.
Yeah, no, it's a super fair question. The difference there is that the feedback that the board gives traditionally are specific to a thing. It's a policy, it's a thing that council is evaluating, and you're giving your input on that thing that council they should be able to take that focus or that lens and put it on and say, okay, my environmental board said this, so I want to look at it through that lens. And I believe those are compelling reasons to change or modify or deny or support or whatever. The difference with this is that this is going to be the council's work plan. They are creating their own work plan for 2 years.
Okay.
And so what they are trying to do is solicit feedback from their advisors to say, what should we as a body of 9 focus on over the next 2 years? Even though the thing says 1 year, it's 12 months.
It's just yeah, the template.
Well, we'll clarify that. But the point is that they then hold themselves accountable to achieving the thing. And so it can live at a little bit higher level than a specific program, a specific policy. If that's how detailed you all want to go, that's certainly within your purview to do so. Say, we want to pass this particular thing.
Okay.
We want you to put that on your work plan because we believe it's so important.
So this is more of our recommendation on what to prioritize from our purview within the board's kind of focus for the next 2 years. What's important? And that could be for existing topics, or it could be something that maybe
Correct.
hasn't been addressed yet.
Yep. So when council then adopts their priorities, like I said, they have 10. Essentially, then staff's work program really flows from that. They say, we are going to dedicate our time and resources. They may have subcommittees to do the thing of council members. They'll have regular check-ins to see how those things are advancing. They'll rely on staff teams from multiple departments to help support getting that thing done.
Mhm.
So that's why they go through the same process of saying, okay, we could do, 137 things. What are the 10 things that we want to really get done? And how do we know these are the important things? We're going to ask our advisors what they believe we should be working on.
So it'd be advisable then to maybe just potentially have 3 topic areas. They may choose one. They might
Yeah.
not choose any of them as
Correct.
part of their top 10. Or our 3 recommendation may be sub bullet points of
Could
their
be.
10, if there's some type
Mhm.
of integration or.
And that's why I think Hannah's point was a really good one, is that not hitting a level which is kind of a programmatic thing,
Yeah.
because the council will say, well, go talk to the departments about getting that done. We're the policymakers, so hit the right tone and level for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is high level. We think that in our perspective from the Environmental Advisory Board, these are kind of our priorities and this is why we think this is the value of that. And then that will go into there and they'll see, okay, you know, how do they want to, if they want to pull any of that into their, okay. All right,
The
that's helpful.
bouldercounty.gov/city council priorities has the current priorities on there
Oh,
and their descriptions and then all this like how they're doing.
you think Boulder priorities?
I just Googled Boulder City Council
Yeah,
priorities.
probably 2025.
Quickest way to find it.
Okay, perfect.
But it's probably helpful to look at like
Yeah.
what level the
Yeah.
priorities are
Because
sitting.
like, if, what's relevant to what we're talking about is a climate action plan update.
Yeah.
Update the city's existing action plan with the focus of updating targets related to resilience and equity. And they, looks like they've picked like one from each sort of department. Like one.
There was a lot of planning related focuses for them
Mm.
in this version.
They also have wildfire hardening and waterwise landscaping policies, which is related to.
Yeah.
And yes.
Oh, and then they have a little progress tracker.
I know,
So
I didn't never seen this page before. But nice to see.
So a lot of stuff in that website. I know it's hard,
It's long.
unless you're looking for it, it's hard to.
It's a little buggy. But it's helpful. I think.
I think I should spend some. I'm looking at this, I never knew this existed.
So Hannah, are you thinking that we kind of each bring, you know, a couple of priorities to our December meeting?
Yeah,
Talk about it, maybe align all that, and then have like a shared doc and then have it kind of as a crowdsourcing type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay,
it was helpful to have one person write a draft so then people could work
Mhm.
off of it. But, or we could all just get it, like, if people are willing to
If you,
write sessions. But yeah, I think
Great.
giving people a chance to like think about it, do a little research. Also, you know, if you don't have, you can just come and join the discussion, but if you're gonna like bring an idea to it, then I think it's better to research it ahead of time, because
Mhm.
again, like half the time, it's like, oh, we already do that. Does that seem good to you guys as a,
do you wanna start the Google Doc before the next meeting to sort of,
oh, the ideas?
yeah. And then just, and that's
Put
okay,
a note,
yeah,
like research notes in there.
yeah, then we can,
Yeah, yeah.
And that way, if you see someone has the same idea as you know.
or we can,
feedback, you
and we can delete stuff if we have.
great idea. It's just what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you don't have to do like a ton of research. It's more just like, is the city doing this? Is this possible?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and my,
If there is another city that
Yeah.
does this, maybe, or has this as a priority, what are they doing?
yeah, how-
And if you have questions as you're brainstorming, just reach out.
Mhm.
Okay, good.
If I share it with the EAB email, do you think everyone will get access? I should probably just do individual emails, right? In terms of a Google Doc,
Go.
or it would go?
I think it should,
Oh, okay, great.
but if it doesn't, let me know and I can forward it to everyone.
The general like listserv and then your email goes to it.
Okay.
It's not like an EA,
Oh,
email, like the listserv.
Oh,
It's a list, EAP listserv. Okay, gotcha, all right.
Okay, so you should all.
My last question. Are there any new projects in the works? Like things you're working on?
For you, Jonathan.
A lot.
Yeah,
A lot.
or something that we don't need to go research because it's already gonna happen.
Yeah, I think that but again, I would say rather projects, I would say more policies. I think that there are a number of things that we've already teed up, and so it's okay to say on the record because we've already identified them as really critical for the upcoming year. Really, I'll just give you some examples of those. The buildings roadmap, we're ready to start looking at parsing that and saying, what are the parts and pieces that we need to be bringing back to council? So an update to the smart regs. So efficiency requirements for rental housing, what's next in that? looking at updates to the Energy Smart program, updates to the deconstruction policy and ordinance. So we have a number of those things that are kind of scheduled. And what's nice is that they sync up really nicely with the work that we've been doing on the comp plan to say, what are the critical issues, kind of getting back to your point about energy burden. What are the big tensions, challenges that we have right now? And do our policies match up with that? And the answer is not in all instances.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a really important piece there. The other big policy piece is linked to what I said earlier about public health and really thinking about chemical use. This has been a big one for our department and across the organization. There's been a full court press from industry across the state to push back on any type of relaxation of preemption, which has been something we've been trying to get removed for a while. We're worried about how there's been a lot of resurgence in chemical use, mostly from the perspective of cities saying, we have this acute wildfire danger, we have fine fuels, don't want to put chemicals down, but we don't want fires. And so they're broadcasting really dangerous chemicals. And a lot of them we're seeing implications with PFAS and other, really nasty stuff. And so for us, really trying to align policy, we have an IPM policy, we have an IPM ordinance, looking at that and thinking about integrated pest management. And we've been pioneering this work, not just regionally, but nationally in terms of how we do our mosquito treatment. And so some of that is starting to feel like it's under attack from industry. So we want to go back and make sure that we as an organization are really doing what we need to do in that space. As we're realizing the connection to climate and all of the other things, biodiversity, et cetera.
Another thing to consider possibly is with 2027 is festival for Sundance.
Oh.
Maybe implementing certain, I don't know, certain aspects of it, like trying to set an example.
Like sustainability.
Yeah,
We do have a committee with Sundance that is looking at how to make it not just like, oh, let's recycle cups, but how do we create a festival that is the model for how you do sustainable festivals?
See, they're already doing.
it's good.
I do the research, come on.
I don't think you would have found that anywhere.
I don't think so.
It's funny.
Crossing it off.
Me, no, my pen is not writing.
I'm not here to say no bad idea, not at all.
Put that at the end of our letter, though, like as a way to be continue being a model of our city makers, to continue acting in good faith.
Every time I
with
go to
Sundance.
like events and I see like just trash everywhere.
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
come on, guys,
Stresses me out.
we can do better.
That's why I think the community thing.
Yeah, exactly,
The
right?
trash on game days stresses me out so much.
Oh my God, the trash at Boulder. Oh,
Trash at my house. Get kicked out.
My baby.
On my Amazon buying.
I blame babies.
Go to enforcement on you.
No. Tax me. Okay, I put all these notes in the shared doc
Okay, cool.
and the link to the.
Okay.
Thank you for putting that together.
It sounds like we're
Yes.
already coalescing on a few things. Around public health. Does anyone have any other questions about it or seeds to plant before? Great. I remember last year we did some sort of whiteboarding. Also, I don't remember why. I think we all showed up at the December meeting without a lot of ideas, so I think maybe that's what.
And we hopped up and wrote all of the ideas, and I think we even might have done some democracy.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll be ready. I need to. I still have to.
If I need to bring voting dots.
What?
Yeah. Stop voting.
Oh, no, no.
Too much
I
weight.
don't think we did dots. I think we did like check marks.
No more single use anything.
I'll bring dinosaur stickers for me. So.
There you go.
Those stickers, how cute, you know.
That you bought on Amazon.
Get this.
It's true.
Great.
Okay.
All right, hope I can remember to do this.
Then I.
We have faith.
I should have written it down. What?
We have faith in you.
I'm gonna write it down.
December 3rd, we're sticking to December 3rd.
Yeah, there's no help, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, motion to finish.
At least have a couple.
Oh, sorry.
She's so
I mean,
excited.
You're the boss, so if you say, we're done, it's fine.
Motion to cut.
Exactly.
Overshoot, Jonathan.
Sorry. Motion to let Jonathan speak.
I've spoken enough, to be clear. Just a couple of things just to note on the calendar and highlight. One, you already touched on, tomorrow night, we'll be presenting the draft updated climate action plan to council. We probably won't go on until, I don't know, 8:30 or so. Packet was out last week. Excited to have a conversation with council again. This is not a total rewrite, it's a refresh, but there are definitely some elements that we have updated within the plan, besides just making it way more user friendly. The graphics are going to be really nice. Excited about that. The packet though is just content. It's not the actual visuals and graphics, but we wanted council to really focus in on the content. The big one obviously is adding compact land use as a guiding principle. It's something that is new in the context of the climate plan, so I'm excited about that one. We have about an hour presentation with council tomorrow night. And then, as I mentioned, just after, we'll have a conversation with council about drafting a letter to Excel, memorializing a lot of the things that council said they said to directly to Excel at a study session earlier this year, expectations over the next year or so. So that's a big one. The other one, just to flag for you all, is at the last public hearing that council had on the landscaping, water conservation, and wildfire resilience, they continued that to December 18th, and so they will not finalize that until that time. There's still a lot of conversation needing to be had. There are still a lot of questions, so they continue that. There will not be more public comment at that study session, but that's when they'll make the final decision on that. So just wanted you to be tracking those two things. And then the only other thing I had, if you'll give me just a quick second. I have not been able to find it, but a council member reached out and had either read the minutes from your meeting or had listened to a verbal the recording, I'm not quite sure, and was concerned that at some point in those minutes, there was a comment, and I don't know who made it, we've not been able to find it, but something about how gray water, a statement saying gray water is not allowed in the state of Colorado. And so that is not an accurate statement at all. And so I wanted to clear the record if that was something that either staff or one of our presenters said. I want to make sure that that is changed in the record. And if that was something that you heard, I want to make sure you were aware of that. So
As in gray water, as in water that's repurposed for use again in the same location that it's repurposed. So like, from your bathroom. And you can repurpose and use it or
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so there was, and part of this is that there was I can't remember, House Bill 1232 or something like that. Last year, it was a 2024 legislative session. Essentially said that gray water systems are allowed in new construction beginning in 2026, but then it allows local jurisdictions to create their own ordinance to either allow or not allow. In fact, the city, and it did go to the Water Resource Advisory Board. Council is adopting an ordinance tomorrow night that actually prohibits gray water systems in new construction. And that is based on, it's a little surprising given our conversation here. But the utilities folks have been doing a lot of research. We had a pilot project at Willville over the past 8 to 10 years. And what they have found from that is that the technology hasn't advanced to a way that you're actually seeing a lot of savings in those big applications. They're very difficult. They have to be repaired. In fact, it creates some cross-contamination potential. And so it doesn't mean that you can't do it at your own home, but it doesn't create an opportunity to just do it full-fledged for new construction. So they're going to revisit that. We'll talk about it tomorrow night at their council meeting, but I just wanted to clear the record that if there was a statement that was made that they aren't allowed across the board, that's inaccurate. So, okay. And I think, and then the last thing, since you mentioned it, a lot of stuff coming out of our office this week in terms of news. And so again, one being our greenhouse gas inventory that we do annually, really impressive results this year. Continuing on pretty impressive trajectory. So where we reduced emissions another 8% over 2023, so 2024 inventory. And so if you look at, since we started measuring, we are at about a 50% reduction, which is pretty extraordinary. I know that's it's like over 2 decades, but these are durable emission reductions, meaning we're not seeing rebounds and we see continued decrease. The report is out, it's on our website. We had a press release go out yesterday. If you want to dig in and see where the biggest sources of emission reductions are coming from, I think it's a really good read and it's kind of fascinating. So there's that. And then we just released an information packet today on our continued work at the Public Utilities Commission and all of the cases and proceedings that we're involved in and what we are trying to push in those proceedings. So that's public today too.
Do this go out via your newsletter? Where does it find
A couple things. The inventory went out
City of New-
in the newsletter.
Just came out this evening.
You got their newsletter?
The city of Boulder newsletter.
Ours goes out.
Our departmental newsletter
That one should be-
that talks about the Berlin Pact
Yeah,
first, and then it talks about our inventory. You got that one?
I signed up for this newsletter for like 3 years. I've never got one. I don't know.
It
It's
might
not
be
that
Not
my
the
spam.
spam. Yeah, I thought I signed
Yeah.
up too, but I definitely did not get anything.
But I don't have the, I don't have the
Like,
climate
myself,
initiative
but-
department
Oh, you don't?
newsletter. I don't.
So I just got one.
Liz and I were chatting about it earlier. It goes out tomorrow.
Okay, so you will get that and maybe we'll just sign you up without you knowing.
It's the city
Yeah,
one,
the
I was city one, and then there's apparently a climate initiatives one too.
We do our own departmental newsletter, and so
Yeah,
this is, we put it out monthly and
The climate initiatives.
correct.
Okay,
It's available.
maybe I just don't know. I get the well,
It's different.
okay. I'll keep an eye out for it.
No, it's okay.
Read about.
About the emissions inventory it was a press release that
Oh,
also
okay.
went out yesterday, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out right now. so.
Yeah. Well,
Say that.
The PUC, if it's
Mhm.
posted online, would you all like me to send that one to you over email?
Which one?
The Public Utilities Commission information packet about all of the proceedings staff has been involved in.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we able to get a copy of the presentation?
I'm sure we should.
Yes, I have it.
That's fine.
Okay, now I
A minute
think.
to spare.
I motion to conclude.
Yes. Second.
Great. We did it.
Thanks for letting me talk so much. Sorry.
Thank you for listening.